to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the number one liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. You know, tonight I opened up the Rumble channel in particular, so just so those of you kind of understand what happens, because Rumble requires me to set up its own key every single time. Okay. Every single time I go to stream, when I set it up, it opens up the chat for Rumble. Now, normally I try to do it, 15, 20 minutes early. Sometimes I do it half an hour early. Well, tonight I actually did it 40 minutes early. And, I was pleasantly surprised by, you fantastic folks who jumped in and started chatting early. So I have a question for you. As soon as I've got to take a look here and see. All right. Well, it's not frozen for me, folks. I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing myself on the stream. But anyway, I want to ask you guys, do you guys want to have Rumble open a little early so that you can get in and kind of start chatting and that kind of stuff? I mean, I know, I don't want to say that I'm following Dan Bongino, although I have to admit, he is successful. So anything that he is doing is obviously something good that we need, or that I would like to implement if I can without getting into trouble. But if I open up the stream a little early, at least on the Rumble side, if I open that up and you guys pop in and stuff and start chatting with each other, then I think it's okay. It looks like I've got some yeses in here. Nobody has said no. Everybody's saying hello to everyone, so I might as well join in. Well, hello, Daybreak, Amy Jean Viner, Buddy Weiser, Outlaw Dogs, 3 Chevy, Bam, Redford, Bonnie, all of the standard miscreants over there on Rumble. I also see Becky over on Facebook. Becky, I'm sorry that the power went out on your submission for Wednesday. You are on deck for Wednesday again tonight. Oh, hi, Coco. There's Coco. She's over there too. And then, of course, I don't see anybody over in YouTube land, which doesn't really surprise me any. But anyway, okay. So, I was talking with my wife, with Mrs. Whiskey, and let me just say, for her to be, shall we say, willing to live in the same domicile as I do for 20 plus years, we're almost at 25, I think. I don't know, I'd have to count. But anyway, to go and have all of that, it's amazing to me that somebody would actually hang out with me that long. Anyway, but she and I were talking this morning and she ran across a joke which inspired the title for tonight's show, which essentially was, that, we speak English, but the Democrats speak or listen, sorry, not speak, but listen in dumbass. And that's pretty much true. I've kind of put that down where it pretty much is, it's pretty much all of that, kind of stuff going on, because whenever you look at social media or whenever you get into a conversation with a Democrat, it seems like we're speaking in English and yet they can't seem to understand it. And so because of that, they're listening in dumbass for sure. They speak sometimes in dumbass too. And I've got a couple of those, a couple examples of those tonight. But before I get to any of that, of course, I have my drink for tonight. I'm going Independence Day style, James and Pepper's 1776 bourbon. I love this stuff. This stuff is really, really good. I have to admit, you guys have, because of this, you guys have pushed me to expand my drink choices rather than being in the same thing all the time. But in the drink choices, and of course I've got it in my rocks glass, my We the People Lucky Shot USA.com, where you can get this, LuckyShotUSA.com. You can pick up this glass. It's got the nice little bullet in it coming in, and the We the People behind the American flag. We've got my rocks in there, my whiskey stones inside there. That's why it's looking so dark, but good stuff. It is also a Kentucky bourbon, so yeah. Anyway. Hey, Dave over on Facebook. Thanks for joining, coming on in. All right. So before I get into all of this stuff, I just got to say that, coming in and doing this, it really disappointed me on Wednesday when the power went out at the studio here. And it kind of bugs me when I can't come in and, do anything for like the streams, because you guys have given me a little bit more energy. I look forward to doing these for you guys. And I especially look forward to seeing your pet picks for Wednesday nights. And then also, I'd kind of like to get the, the questions for whiskey kind of rolling. There have been a couple here recently that, I've been told by the people, hey, if you're really desperate, use this. But I'd really like to get that moving. So anyway. Okay, let me go ahead and hit tonight's sponsor, which of course, for tonight, it is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. It's got nice rounded corners, leather, 1/8 of an inch leather. The pages inside are water resistant, and look at that stitching and binding. It goes all the way through the leather and the pages. This comes with a 100-year warranty against manufacturing defects and material defects and workmanship. You can get it either fixed or replaced for free should it fall apart. And by the way, my youngest fan, I'm being told, my youngest fan has this with him on a trip to where? To a Boy Scout National, or a Scouts, I guess they call themselves Scouts now, wimps. Scouts over in Virginia. He's at the national setup, and this is fantastic with it. You can get it for Christmas. You can stocking stuffer and that kind of stuff. That's where he picked it up from his fantastic parental unit, who saw it and said, hey, I got to get that for him because he's got his civics badges coming up. And that was just fantastic. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all my Whiskey Warriors. And if you would do me a favor, go and check out the IOTC, the Institute on the Constitution. Check them out today. And, of course, I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate and for them being a sponsor. Okay. So let's get on to our next segment, which is a lot of people's favorite segments. I actually didn't realize that this was something that a lot of people liked, but hey, it's been a popular segment of the program, so and I enjoy doing it. Let's go ahead and jump right into On This Day in American History. And, of course, On This Day in American History comes from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is chock full. This is a thick book, chock full of all kinds of American historical facts and little stories, little tidbits about our founding. And you can pick it up at any bookstore. I mean, the backside has it listed for $20 when I bought it a couple of years ago. So it's not that expensive, and it's fantastic. It is fantastic. All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about America the Beautiful. In 1893, a young English professor from Massachusetts named Catherine Lee Bates traveled to Colorado Springs to spend a few weeks teaching a summer session at Colorado College. On July 22nd, the supreme day of our Colorado sojourn, as she put it, Bates and Bates and the other visiting teachers piled into a wagon for a bumpy ride to the top of Pikes Peak, which towered over the town. From the snow-capped summit, she gazed in wordless rapture over the far expanse of mountain ranges and the sea-like sweep of the plain before her. That night, back in her room, Bates scratched out the opening lines of a poem that had floated into her mind on the mountaintop. The words that originally ran, "O beautiful for halcyon skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the enameled plain." 2 years later, on July 4th, 1895, her poem was printed in the Congregationalist, a popular church magazine. It quickly found an appreciative audience. Several years after that, it was set to the hymn tune Materna, composed by Samuel A. Ward. By that time, Bates had made some revisions to her verses, including changing halcyon skies to spacious skies and enameled plain to fruited plain. Today, the song, which reminds us that America can be great only as long as the beauty of the land is matched by the goodness of its citizens, is one of the nation's favorite patriotic hymns. And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. Talking about the song America the Beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful little thing. You know, it's too bad that the Democrats seem to hate America so much that they want to fundamentally change it. We've got so many things that are going on. I mean, it's just, I just can't understand how somebody could take the phrase, you know, make America great again, and think that that's anything but literally making America great again. And I guess that pretty much shows you that pretty much shows you how messed up in their hearing and their thinking and their speaking the Democrats are. Well, one of the things that, we talk about them and their Trump derangement syndrome, okay, their TDS that they have going on. And believe me, it is rampant. It's going to get even worse as we come along, okay? But it is as we come along to the elections, but it's still out there. And one of the top TDSers, one of the top TDSers that are out there is Rob Reiner, the original meathead. Now, for those of you who are older than dirt, like myself, you can remember back in the day, it was the program was called All in the Family, and it had, oh gosh, I can't think of his first name, but I can't even, shoot, I can't think of his name, but anyway, this guy, this is where he got his start. And realistically, I don't think he's really starred in anything else. But he is a 100%, Archie Bunker, but I was trying to think of the actor's name, cause I loved him in, there we go, Carol O'Connor. I got the Carol name, but I couldn't think of what his last name, his O'Connor side of things would be. But Carol O'Connor, yeah, I loved Carol O'Connor in the Heat of the Night, the television show that was a spinoff of the movie. Carol O'Connor was Archie Bunker on the show, and yeah, he coined the term meathead for Rob Reiner's character, which was actually very apropos, let's just say, for the way the man, and I'm using that term loosely, acts today. Well, let me explain something a little bit. So he posted or tweeted something. Let me see. Did I grab? Oh, I didn't set this up. Give me just a second. Okay. So Rob tweeted this on Twitter, and it's kind of hard for you to see, but I'll go ahead and read it. He says, head to head, Biden slaughters Trump. The only way Trump has any chance is as a third party candidate. Okay. So first of all, let me just say this. Okay. Rob Reiner is a complete moron. But that being said, back then, that being said, he's missing a hell of a lot here. And the other thing too is that when we talk about third-party candidates, I've talked about third-party candidates here before. Our system of elections, especially for the president, does not necessarily support a third-party candidate. And what's really funny is when you go back in and listen to the some of the writings of the founding fathers and everything, they actually abhorred the idea of political parties. They were not fans of political parties at all, and in fact, some of the founders even mentioned that by doing political parties and stuff, they would go and say that political parties really have no business realistically in government. They knew that there were some dangers with political parties. However, over time and development, we have turned into essentially what is a two-party system. Now, the Electoral College, in order to get elected president, you have to have 270 electoral votes. So if a third-party candidate were to show up that was popular enough to essentially split that 270 into three different candidates, okay? Let's just go with just the fact that it would be, almost evenly split. None of those candidates would actually gain the presidency. And so the Constitution outlines that if they can't get enough electoral votes, then it goes to the House of Representatives. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the House of Representatives, the House of Representatives is broken up into, guess what? 2 parties. You have the Republicans and the Democrats. You do have a few independents in there, I'll admit, but the independents oftentimes will caucus with either one party or the other. So what ends up happening is, even if that third party would be able to get in mathematically to take a third of the votes, it's still going to be decided in the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives are going to vote basically either Republican or Democrat. So this is part of the reason why we have a challenge when it comes to the idea of, and thank you, 3 Chevy, he went ahead and said 66, to divide 270 into thirds. But the thing is that we need to understand that we can't do a third party. In fact, when Ross Perot ran as a third party, we were actually kind of lucky that it didn't split it out, because even then it wouldn't make a difference to that. And it just is ludicrous to even think of. Now, because we've been developed in a 2-party system, all right, and we've kind of grown up into the 2-party system, that third party, if it's a former Democrat or more of a leftist liberal type who takes that away, just like you have the with the Democrats, if a third party candidate goes and runs for this new no labels party that Buddy is keep mentioning here in the chat, if a Democrat runs there, what ends up happening is he or she will pull away votes from the Democrat Party. Okay. And so what ends up happening here is the Democrat Party actually loses more votes, and you end up with the Republican being able to gain more votes. But again, keep in mind, if it does split evenly to the point where nobody gets to 270, or it splits in such a way that nobody gets to 270, then you have that situation where the House of Representatives will be voting with every state to go and get the president elected. And so the chances of a third party actually going anywhere, I think, is ridiculous. Now, I would love to see a third party, because I would love to see a fourth party and a fifth party, because, you know, to be honest, sitting here with just 2 parties and having to choose between the 2, I think it does us a little bit of a disservice. And we end up with people like Joe Biden, who basically shouldn't have even been running the country in the first damn place. But again, that's the system that we have. That's the system that we need to run with. And there you go. All right. So getting back to my good old buddy, Rob. Well, Rob here was saying that head-to-head, Biden slaughters Trump. Well, I hate to tell him this, but recent polls are actually changing that. So this came from Breitbart, and this is a Harvard Capps Harris poll, and it actually revealed that Donald Trump leads Joe Biden by 18 points among independents. So independents are, and not by independents like as in Independence Day, but independent voters are the key demographic here. Because you're going to have those staunch Democrats who are going to vote Democrat no matter what, because they hate everything else. Okay. And then you're going to have the Republican Party and the Trump supporters. They're going to vote Trump no matter what. So you have essentially a fight or an argument or a scrap, whatever you want to call it, for those independent voters. Okay. And this poll is, again, the Harvard Caps Harris poll. And again, I'm not saying that I am, really all that enthused about polling, especially, we're still a little bit of a ways away from the actual election and primaries and stuff like that. So all of this is suppositional, of course, but the survey was conducted online from July 19th to the 20th on 2023 and had just a little over 2,000 registered voters. Okay. Obviously they were weighted for age, gender, region, blah, 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 etc. Okay. So let's get into this. I just want to show a few of these. So first of all, the first one is the perception of the direction of the country continues to decline. So less than 3 in 10 say that we're actually on the right track. Gee, I wonder why. So we have about 61% say that we're on the wrong track and 29% say we're on the right track. And for those of you who can do math in your head, that leaves 10% who are undecided. Not exactly sure why those folks are undecided, but they are. Okay. The perception of the U.S. economy is also poor. Now, this is the Democrats, they want to run on the issue of abortion, and they're totally missing the idea, or they're totally missing the fact that people aren't really paying attention to the abortion issue anymore. We're paying attention to the economy. We're paying attention to our pocketbooks. And so the U.S. economy being on the right track or the wrong track, 62% say it's on the wrong track. 29% again say that it's on the right track, and only 9% think that it's, they don't know. They're indecisive, let's say. Now, Joe Biden has been pushing, obviously, Bidenomics. He's been, and his interns on Twitter, let me tell you, I get at least 7 or 8 of these tweets a day, easily, where they are trying to tout Bidenomics. And it's not just him. The White House does the same thing also. But in this particular case, the perceived strength of the U.S. economy continues to be well below 50. And remains virtually unchanged since April. So this has been going on for a little bit of time, 4 months. 61% versus 39%. Now that's interesting. Nobody stayed undecided there. Just under half of voters are saying their personal financial situation is worsening. Now this is This is an interesting statistic because, of course, everybody's touting all of these unemployment numbers. I keep hitting back with the fact that unemployment may be low, but unemployment people tend to fall off the rolls. And you have to also look and take into account the labor participation rate, which has not yet recovered back to pre-pandemic levels yet. It's getting close. I'm not going to deny it, but it's not quite there yet. So anyway, in this particular case, 47% say that their financial situation is getting worse. 27% say they are just as well off, and 26% say that it's improving. I don't know how it can be improving, but whatever. But here's the thing is, this is Biden's approval level. And for the past several months, he's basically been pretty stagnant. He's floating somewhere right just above 40% of people who are approving of his situation. And this does not bode well for a president who's going in to try and get back into office. This really doesn't bode well. And this could be part of the reason why they're no longer really trying to silence people talking about Hunter and his business dealings and all of that crap that's going to eventually implicate Joe Biden in a pay influence peddling scheme. For those of you who are intelligent and actually speak English and understand English, yes, that did actually happen. For those of you who are speaking dumbass and listening and hearing dumbass, you guys still think that Biden hasn't done anything wrong, which is a bunch of crap. And I got something on that here in just a minute. But anyway, I've got this link in the show notes, and I would highly recommend you go and take a look because there's a lot of other things. This wasn't just political polling necessarily, but they've got a lot of other things like, congressional approval. Kennedy, Musk, and DeSantis are versus others with public approval. Those guys are the only ones that have a net public approval that is in the positive. There's institutions, there's talking about a horse race between, Joe Biden and the other candidates and Kamala Harris and so on and so forth. But realistically, this particular poll does not fall favorably on Mr. Biden or Kamala Harris, to be honest with you. And I mean, yeah, these guys, look, I can't tell you enough times, these polls are going to be subjective. They're going to be out there and that kind of thing. But the reality of it is that people with half a brain know that the Biden administration and the administration currently in this office is basically, they're just not doing a very good job, regardless of how many times they want us to believe it. It's not happening. Not happening at all. All right. Let me get this. Okay. So this next article that I have here, we're talking about the FBI's bribery doc. I've been hit on a couple of things. I've been hit on a couple of things in social media where people have been like, oh, the whole Biden bribe scheme, that's just all fake. It's all fake news. Well, I hate to tell you this, but it's not. It's not even close. I mean, we have probably the most corrupt administration in the White House as far back as I can remember anyway. I mean, Bill Clinton getting a little blowy in the Oval Office, that was like the huge thing back in the 90s. And that doesn't even compare. And everybody looks at like Watergate and thinks Watergate is like the worst. No, that doesn't even compare. Nixon's in his grave rolling over saying, hey, I gave up the presidency for that. And I could have been doing all this and still maintain presidency. I mean, jeez, this guy and his family are just absolutely horrible. Okay. Absolutely horrible. And here, let me just get into this next piece. I mean, I just got to show this to you. Okay. So this comes from the Daily Caller, and apparently there is now public information that appears to corroborate key details. So forget the entire thing about, the FBI, the IRS whistleblowers. Forget all of those guys. Forget their testimony. This is actually public information that people have been able to correlate to the Biden bribery doc. And what they're talking about is the FD 1023, which I've got. I actually downloaded it. Senator Grassley was all but willing to go ahead and put it out in the public sphere. So I actually grabbed a reported copy of the thing. But public information apparently corroborates some of the details of the FBI's document implicating Hunter Biden in corrupt dealings with Ukrainian energy firm Burisma. Margot Cleveland of the Federalist first reported this. Okay. So the FBI document is based on information provided by a key confidential human source, or CHS, who told the FBI that Burisma had paid Hunter Biden to secure access to then Vice President Joe Biden's political poll to assist in the firm's effort to make some money. Now, what is being outlined is essentially this. Burisma wanted to go and purchase a stateside company and then create a initial public offering on our stock exchange. Okay. And so in order to do that, because they were already under investigation at the time, in order to do that, they paid money to Hunter Biden, and ultimately, we believe, at least, following the money trail and everything else, Joe Biden, for the ability for Burisma to actually come into America, buy a company for around 20 or 30 million, and be able to do an initial public offering or an IPO in order to gain access into America's financial markets. Now, this is all information. Everything I just told you came from the confidential human source on that FD 1023. All right. And this was back in 2015, 2016. And other public information actually corroborates the information that is being put out on this document. So, you know, for those of you that don't really understand, and I'm not a former law enforcement officer or anything like that, but the whole concept of having a confidential human source is based off of his or her reliability. And this particular person has supposedly been supplying the FBI at the time with up to 10 years worth of reliable, confirmable, corroborating evidence. Whenever they came to the FBI with information, the information was true and correct. It had been corroborated. But for some damn reason, we all know why, but for some damn reason, the FBI decided to just ignore this. Okay, before I continue, I got to give a shout out to Music Man. Music Man, thank you very much for the Rumble rant. Dems still own the DOJ, so we're screwed. I got a little bit of something on that in just a minute, but thank you very, very much. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the Rumble rant. All right. Yeah, so the confidential source asserted that Burisma intended to access U.S. capital markets sometime in late 2015 or early 2016, and that the firm was willing to spend up to $30 million to do so, according to the FBI document. Hunter Biden advised Burisma executives to buy an existing established energy company in the U.S. to access Western markets because it could raise far more capital via U.S. markets than it could elsewhere. And, you know, so on and so forth. So, I mean, realistically, folks, this is just ridiculous. You know, the Burisma paid Hunter Biden a monthly salary of $50,000 despite his lack of relevant experience in the energy sector, in accordance with the FBI document. Okay. And a Burisma executive told the FBI's confidential source that they had placed Hunter Biden a Burisma executive told the FBI's confidential source, I think I got that right. Anyway, that they had placed Hunter Biden on the company's board to protect us through his dad from all kinds of problems. And this is quoted according to the document. All right. So anyway, I mean, seriously, anybody who is speaking or listening in dumbass obviously is not paying attention to all of the information that is coming out, that is flooding out about this entire situation. And somebody has to ask yourself, why is it that now that this information is coming out, that they're not like trying to hide it anymore? I mean, they could have, well, illegally, granted, but they could have tried to hide it. They could have destroyed the document. They could have done all things. But you have to wonder, why now are they allowing all of this information to come out? And granted, it is a big public forum and everything, but and especially with the whistleblowers going up on Capitol Hill, but basically they're coming out and they're allowing all this information to just show up. So anyway, so the IRS whistleblowers did fantastic. If any of you have gone and seen, I've seen clips, I haven't seen the whole thing, but if you go and watch the testimony of the two whistleblowers, Shapley, I think, or Shapley is one of them. And the other one is, I can't think of who the other person is, but right off the top of my head. But anyway, they are just incredible. They were incredible being cross-examined, let's say, by the Democrats. And the Democrats even stepped in it. Dan Bongino did a fantastic... If you haven't watched Dan Bongino's shows, I highly recommend you go to Rumble, go to Dan Bongino's last 2 days. He points out something that is crucial to this whole case, that the Democrats actually have put on congressional record that Joe Biden did actually talk to his son about his business dealings, regardless of him saying repeatedly that he never did. But you should go and check it out. I mean, you should go and check out his episodes. He's doing a great job with this. I don't want to take any of his thunder away, but the thing about it is this article that popped in Just the News. Apparently, the IRS whistleblowers who rocked Capitol Hill earlier this week with their account of political interference in the Hunter Biden criminal investigation, tax investigation, I should say, plan to provide Congress with additional documentation that substantiates their allegations. One of their lawyers told Just the News. Tristan Leavitt, the president of the Empower Oversight Whistleblower Center, who represents IRS Supervisory Special Agent Gary Shapley, said Thursday evening that his client and fellow whistleblower, Joseph Ziegler, were preparing to produce the documents to the House Ways and Means Committee in the coming weeks. We're assembling that from Gary. I also believe Mr. Ziegler, made clear in the hearing that he has a lot of documents that he is ready to share with the Ways and Means Committee. Leavitt told Just the News, their no-noise television show. And so, it will take some time for the Ways and Means Committee to review that. They will have to vote again to consider releasing it, just like they did with the transcripts. So it could be some time, potentially weeks, before any of that information will be released. But there's a lot of information that further corroborates what these IRS whistleblowers have said, he said. So there's more to come here, folks. There is much more to come. And yeah, so this is amazing that it's coming out this quickly. And speaking of which, you have to wonder why Comer, who's the head of the House Ways and Means Committee doing this, you have to wonder why he hasn't called for a special counsel being appointed yet. Well, he's apparently, according to the Washington Examiner, James Comer, he's the chairman of the Oversight Committee, says he doesn't want to see a special counsel appointed by the Department of Justice to investigate Hunter Biden because his committee, along with the House Ways and Means and Judiciary Committees, are already doing the work. He says, he said this week, I have no confidence in special counsels. I have no confidence in Merrick Garland to appoint an independent, credible, unbiased special counsel. I think we're making a lot of progress in our investigation, so we're going to continue to plow forward. This actually is a good sign, I'll be honest with you, because if they would have just washed their hands of it and handed it over to Merrick Garland, we definitely wouldn't be hearing any of this information. We would not be getting any of the information coming out that we are now today. So this is this is just incredible that he's continuing and saying that that we are doing just fine. We don't need the Department of Justice's help. However, on the other hand, according to this article in Newsmax, Comer is now saying that Hunter potentially faces up to 10 criminal referrals. Okay, now for those of you that don't know, all right, for those of you that don't know, criminal referrals, because Congress cannot charge somebody criminally with something, they do have to make referrals. And those referrals go to the Department of Justice for further investigation or prosecution. Now, they're going to make referrals, but I honestly, until Garland is out, so here's the thing. My hope is, in terms of thinking about this in a linear fashion, all right, my hope is that this investigation, we will continue to keep piling up and piling up and piling up the information and the evidence and all of the, figure out the entire thing. And then once that gets completed and the 2024 election is done and we have a Republican in the White House who ideally will come in and just completely clean house and get rid of all of the FBI and any of the other three-letter agencies that are not doing what they're supposed to do, that they will then take the investigation from this and go after the Bidens. That would be nice. That would be nice. But we'll see if it actually happens. Speaking of three-letter agencies that I'd love to get rid of, the FBI, apparently, according to this Hot Air article, the FBI is still abusing Section 702 and has now investigated a senator and a judge. The FBI apparently had, I've talked about it through the FISA warrants, had illegally searched thousands of citizens' private banking records and other online data without obtaining warrants, in a clear abuse of the Bureau's FISA Section 702 authority. Okay, so that's specifically the way that is, that's specifically how they've been doing it. Now, Christopher Wray assured a House committee that reforms had been put in place, that there would be fewer indictments fewer incidences of this illegal activity. But this week's news suggests that his alleged efforts haven't addressed the problem. So, I'm sorry, for all of the rank and file of the FBI, the low-level people that are out there doing their jobs, things like that, I'm okay with them staying on and being moved into other agencies and that kind of stuff. But everybody from middle management on up in the FBI, they all need to be gone. They need to just fire them all. Day one, after you take that swearing in fact, even at your acceptance speech, you could if you're the candidate, you could probably stand there and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to go ahead and start this off by saying anyone who is a mid-level manager or above, you're all fired. I kind of think of like the movie Walking Tall with The Rock, where he gets elected sheriff, and the first thing he does when he goes out to the sheriff's office is he's standing on the front steps, and of course the old sheriff is sitting there and saying, oh, these are good men, good deputies, so on and so forth. And the Rock's character's response is just to look at everybody and go, you're all fired. That to me would be absolutely epic. I would love that. That would be fantastic. Okay. Anyway, so the FBI apparently, according to a piece from the Associated Press, FBI employees wrongly searched for foreign surveillance data for the last names of a U.S. senator and a state senator, according to a court opinion released on Friday. This disclosure could further implicate the Biden administration's efforts to renew a major spy program that already faces bipartisan opposition in Congress. Another FBI employee impromptu queried the Social Security number of a state judge who alleged civil rights violations by a municipal chief of police, according to the opinion by the chief judge of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. News of this latest violation comes as the Biden administration faces a difficult battle in persuading Congress to renew Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which allows spy agencies to collect swaths of emails and other communications. Okay, so our FBI is literally corrupt from the top down into the agency. I just don't see how we can continue to allow it to survive in the near future. It just isn't doing anything for us at all. All right. So somebody on the chat, I won't name names, but somebody over on the Rumble chat was saying they were going to smoke something, which is fine. Go ahead. If it's legal, light up. I don't care. But they aren't the only person who apparently was lighting up. I saw this in the social media outlets, and it's just classic. But anyway, Breitbart reports now that Hunter Biden's lawyer was apparently seen smoking a bong out on his deck of his apartment when Hunter Biden was visiting. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Kevin Morris, who represents Hunter Biden, was photographed by the UK Daily Mail apparently smoking a substance from a water bong from the balcony of his Los Angeles, California home during his client's visit. And there's a photo here of that you can see him right here on the oh, you can't see. So it's on the right-hand side of the two photos that I have here. From the Daily Mail's Twitter account. The Daily Mail reported Hunter visited his sugar brother, Hollywood lawyer Kevin Morris, who was photographed appearing to smoke from a bong. The first son took a trip from his Malibu pad in the Pacific Palisades on Thursday to visit his attorney, after agreeing to plead guilty to federal tax crimes last month. While Hunter was at the house, Morris was snapped, meaning a photograph was taken, on a balcony in plain view of the public street, appearing to huff from a white bong in photos exclusively obtained by the dailymail.com. All right. First of all, guys, I mean, look, we all know that Hunter is a crack addict. I mean, all of the pictures and everything else is there. In fact, I think and so do most people. Most people think that Hunter Biden, it was Hunter Biden's cocaine in the White House, or at least a delivery to it. But anyway, this is just ridiculous. I mean, this guy is the dredge of society. He's a piece of trash. There's so much. And I don't know if anybody heard, but when Marjorie Taylor Greene, and don't watch that segment, but when Marjorie Taylor Greene went ahead and put up photos of Hunter Biden and his escort service and things like that, things that he was trying to claim were business expenses, she actually got a lot of flack from that. And apparently Hunter Biden is going to sue her for defamation, I guess. I don't know how. It's his photos from his laptop, and he is the one in them. But anyway, yeah, It's just, yeah, it's just, this family is just crazy. All right. Daybreak, thank you very much for the Rumble rant over on Rumble. Whiskey on Train, misread comment. I'm not quite sure what that meant. You're going to have to elaborate a little bit there, but anyway. Oh, I guess I've got a YouTube video to watch that where someone explains the value of whiskey as a luxury item. Oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll be able to write it off on my taxes next year. All right. Anyway, okay, so to continue on with the idea that the Democrats are listening and speaking dumbass, we have our absolutely wonderful and fantastic, the most stellar of VPs ever in the history of the United States. In the history of the United States. And actually, I'm gonna take a second. We're gonna derail this train. We're gonna here we go. This is gonna be a derailment here for just a second because somebody decided to hop in the Rumble chat, and so yeah, I'm gonna give you a 30 seconds of my, or well, less than 30 seconds of my time. Call in guy 1 says, "What would you do if Hunter got hit by a bus today? You'd have nothing to talk about for the next 2 years." Actually, that's a bunch of bullshit. I would have plenty to talk about. Thank you. So there you go. I would have plenty to talk about. Because frankly, I would rather be talking about something else other than the idiots in the White House. But let's move on. Kamala Harris apparently went to Florida. She actually flew to Florida. Okay. She actually flew to Florida and blasted Florida on its history curriculum. Okay. She's the freaking border czar, and they're not, and she's never been to the border, but she goes ahead and flies to Florida to, talk about a non-existent situation in the Florida education system. So her claim is that the Florida's new school rules, which were put out here recently, want to replace history with lies. And honestly, that's the 1619 project, folks. That's the 1619 project. They're replacing history with lies. But here's her statement. She said, extremists, so-called leaders for months have dared to ban books. My words, not happening. Extremists here go back to her. Extremists here in Florida pass a law saying, don't say gay. False again. Trying to instill fear in our teachers that they should not live their full life and love who they love, Ms. Harris said. Then she reassured her Jacksonville, Florida audience that you are not fighting out here by yourselves. Okay. So here we go. First of all, they're not banning books. They're taking pornographic cartoon books out of elementary schools. So they're not necessarily banning the books. You can still get the books if you want. Okay. But what you can do, or what you can't do, is you can't have them in elementary school libraries. I mean, just like you wouldn't put like Hustler or Playboy or Jugs or something like that in elementary schools for kids to go and consume that kind of product. Okay. Now, the other thing is the whole comment of don't say gay, which some idiot, and I can't remember who it was, some leftist lunatic media person was saying how they were going through and driving through Florida and like sticking their head out of the car like a dog and yelling out, don't say gay, don't say gay. All right. That wasn't the case. It wasn't don't say gay. It was literally to avoid or to restrict sex education to older ages. It has nothing to do Nothing to do with that. And the same, the other piece here where they're talking about how teachers should be able to live their full life and love who they love. None of that was discussed as part of the laws. None of it would have been part of the laws. Okay. Now she continually talked, and she continued on her thing where it was talking about she specifically focused in on the African studies section with regards to the curriculum. Now, I happen to have a copy of that curriculum. You can download it. I have it. I have the link in the show notes. Okay. But these are the academic standards for social studies for 2023. And they have a little coding scheme, but here's where I don't understand, because they were basically trying to claim that Florida was trying to rewrite history. Well, here's some of the things that they're going to cover in this curriculum. They're going to recognize African American inventors and explorers, such as Lonnie Johnson, who was an inventor, Macy Jemison, and George Washington Carver, as examples. Okay. They are going to identify African American artists, such as Aretha Franklin, Charles White, who did the Abraham Lincoln portrait, James Earl Jones, Maya Angelou, among others. Those are examples. They are also going to identify African Americans who demonstrated civic service. For example, Secretary of State Colin Powell, Willa Beatrice Brown, Carter G. Woodson, and Senator Hiram Revels. They're also going to identify and talk about oral traditions and folk tales of African Americans. And they got a couple of them listed there. They're also going to identify African Americans who demonstrated heroism and patriotism. For example, Booker T. Washington, Jesse Owens, the Tuskegee Airmen, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, President Barack Obama, First Lieutenant Vernon Baker, Sergeant First Class Melvin Morris. They're going to identify African American community leaders who made positive contributions to the state of Florida. And they list a bunch of them that are here. So I don't understand where she's getting the idea that I just don't understand where she's getting the idea that this is racist. This isn't racist. They're not trying to revise history. They're trying to celebrate history. They're trying to bring the African American history to the forefront as well when you're talking about this. And so anyway, I mean, I don't know. It's it continues. I mean, you can lead through the whole thing. That's just like the first 4 pages. They have 216 pages of this thing. And she zoomed in on one thing, which, let's be honest, actually is a potential positive when it comes to slavery. She zoned in on the fact that they want to talk about the positives of slavery, meaning that there were certain slaves that came in and learned new skills and new trades and became actually better. Even though slavery itself was absolutely horrible, they actually were able to better themselves as a part of a horrible experience. Okay. So, yeah. So there you go. I mean, it's just, I just don't, these Democrats, they're speaking and listening dumbass. They're not focused on any of this stuff. It just doesn't make any sense to me in terms of all this. But then again, I mean, I don't, and yes, Dave over on Facebook made a comment. Her family did own slaves in Jamaica. Yes, she did. Her family did. So, Anyway, all right. I'm debating on this. He hasn't really, guys, he hasn't really done too much yet for me to really do anything. I know over on Rumble, I actually have a troll over on Rumble. Music Man pointed it out and says, Whiskey, you're on the map. You have a troll. Thanks for the Rumble rant. I do appreciate that. But I'm trying to be nice, you know, differing opinions are allowed, but, he hasn't quite skirted the line just yet. But yeah, so, anyway. All right. Okay. Yeah, some of these guys are just hilarious, but anyway, okay. So moving on. No, actually, call in guy. I'm not celebrating cancel culture other than the cancel culture of the proper type. Then yes, I will celebrate that. So there you go. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, okay, moving on. So there's a couple of states outside of Florida. There's another state, in our, country that's actually doing quite well. Now they have a habit of doing the right thing all the time. You know, you seem to have the same, yeah, it looks like he's a bot. I'm starting to get the feeling that he's a bot. So yep. All right. I'm going to give him a 5-minute timeout. He comes back, then I might think about doing something more than that, but he's got a 5-minute timeout now. All right. As he just keeps repeating his same shit, different day. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next thing. So the state of Texas, I don't know if anybody saw this, but the state of Texas, put in a floating border barrier. And the DOJ apparently announced that they were going to sue Texas over this barrier. Okay. And Greg Abbott, who, you know, I got to be honest, he is standing up for himself pretty much. Well, this is interesting. Okay, bye-bye. If he comes in again, I'm done. His next account will be banned completely. That crap doesn't fly. Anyway, so Texas put up a barrier in the Rio Grande to keep people from, crossing the border. And of course, the DOJ has said now that they're going to sue them for it. And the Department of Justice, according to this piece in Fox News, the Department of Justice says it intends to sue Texas Governor Greg Abbott over the use of a floating buoy border barrier to stop illegal immigration into the state, a move that immediately drew a fire response from the Republican governor. The state of Texas's actions violate federal law, raise humanitarian concerns, and present serious risks to public safety and the environment, and may interfere with the federal government's ability to carry out its official duties, the DOJ said in a letter to Abbott. The spokesperson from the Justice Department's Environmental and Natural Resources Division essentially said that confirmed to Fox Digital that the DOJ had sent a letter to the Texas governor and the attorney general providing notice of our intent to pursue legal action related to unlawful construction of the floating barrier in the Rio Grande River pursuant to Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbors Act, blah, blah, blah. Abbott announced that the barrier consisting of orange buoys is intended to discourage migrants from crossing the Rio Grande in June and began installing it this month. It's part of Operation Lone Star, a multifaceted operation to tackle the border crisis amid what Republicans say is a lack of leadership from the federal government, which is true. So this is going to be interesting. Again, the Biden, I think, is going to get into trouble with this. He's going to end up suing the state, and it's going to go up to the Supreme Court, of course, and then the Supreme Court is basically going to tell Biden that he's not doing what he is supposed to be doing. Well, here's what Texas's border crackdown has actually done. And this is way more than what the federal government has been doing. But according to the Epoch Times, the Texas border crackdown bears fruit. 422 million lethal fentanyl doses seized, over 31,000 criminal arrests. Okay. Texas, and this is from the piece, Texas efforts to stop the smuggling of drugs, weapons, and people into the United States under Operation Lone Star have borne fruit, according to the data provided by by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who pledged to continue deploying every strategy available to respond to the border crisis. Operation Lone Star was launched in March of 2021 as a response to the surge of illegal immigration as a combined effort of the Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, and the Texas National Guard. The operation deployed air, ground, marine, and tactical border security assets to high-threat areas along the border in a bid to deny Mexican cartels and other smugglers the smuggled people, weapons, and drugs into the country. And so anyway, yeah. Texas is doing what he okay. You're done. Goodbye. Texas is doing basically what the federal government is supposed to be doing, but isn't. And so anyway, this is just completely ridiculous in terms of that. So I don't get it. I really don't. Speaking about that, just as a side note, this article hit Sound of Freedom, which talks about human trafficking, in specific children's sex trafficking, has apparently breaking expectations. It hits 100 million in box office receipts. So, yeah, this is a fantastic movie. My mom went and saw it. She essentially called it out and said, you need to go and watch it as well. And I probably will. I'm going to try to do so. But it's a fantastic movie, apparently. She enjoyed it quite immensely. She also said that it definitely makes you think. And makes you want to, help out in any way, shape, or form. I highly recommend that you talk to, that you go and listen, talk to people, but also go and listen to my episode 52. Go and check out episode 52 because of the fact that I talk about human trafficking. Now, granted, this particular person that I interviewed is over in is talking about stuff over in Europe and how Ukraine, the Balkans, all of that. But the thing about it is this is a huge deal, and Trump actually went and showed did a hosted movie night, and the hosted movie night that he did, at the end of it, he basically said that he would be looking at severe punishment. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it might have been the death penalty for these people. But anyway, this is just sad and scary at the same time that this stuff comes along. So anyway, it's just I'm going to try and see it. My wife probably can't. Mrs. Whiskey can't watch movies that have to deal with children. She can't even watch like things like Criminal Minds that have to deal with children, even though she knows it's all fake. But anyway, so yeah, so there's this. Moving on to kids a little bit more about kids. I saw this, and this is pretty sad too, because the left has really pushed us to get to a point where, again, we're dealing with a sickness in a lot of society. But apparently a 16-year-old female swimmer who was now banned by the YMCA swim team for not wanting to share a locker room with men. Folks, look, I mean, I just got to put this out here. You have children, literally children, girls who are in their developing stages of their bodies and stuff. Why are you forcing these kids to be in front of people of the opposite sex? I mean, this is horrible. Okay, so apparently on Thursday, former University of Kentucky swimmer Caitlin Wheeler joined Outkick's Dan Dakich to discuss her younger sister Abigail being kicked off of her YMCA swim team after protesting a male being allowed in the female locker room. During the interview posted on Twitter, Wheeler explained that her 16-year-old sister went into the locker room after practice one day in April, and she witnessed a man changing in her locker room. And obviously, the shock and settlement of that was scary for her. She felt unsafe, so she immediately went and told her head coach. She told him that there was a man changing in the locker room. She was dismissed, she continued. She was told that there was nothing that he could do. She and my parents went to the CEO and the YMCA board and brought this to them. And again, they were told they couldn't do anything. They were laughed at. My sister was laughed at and told, transgenders have been around a long time. This isn't new, and laughed. She explained that her sister and another teammate posted signs that said women's rights, keep women's spaces female, and safe sport. The next day, the team was told the signs were hate speech that was discriminatory and disrespectful. Her sister and teammate told them that they were gladly part of this. And the coach told them he didn't feel it was appropriate for her to practice with the team anymore. The YMCA followed up with her parents to let them know that she could not be allowed in the facility anymore. You know what? I'd be furious if I would be furious. And I pretty much, there's just no way. There's just no way. I'd be pissed as a parent. That's ridiculous. First of all, you have no idea what that person is doing or what they are, what they are a part of. It just infuriates me to even think that we've come this far. Women are supposed to be protected. Children, in particular, are supposed to be protected. And this is just... Our world is just turning completely upside down, as the Bible foretold. Upside down. All right. If you've listened to, so we're going to move off of that subject for a little bit. I just get frustrated sometimes and got to go. All right. So last couple of things here, but apparently there was a article. I don't have it, but apparently there was an article that came out that had to deal with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which, if you recall, we drained or took a big chunk out of, Biden did, to try and keep gas prices low. But the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was originally designed to only be drained and refilled 5 times. It wasn't supposed to be originally designed to be like an ATM machine where you could just go and draw out whenever you wanted. Okay. And I've told you before on this program that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve can only pull out 1 million barrels a day. So realistically, it is a very slow process and can only do a small portion of our entire consumption in any given day for that. So this popped, and I agree with this. I don't think we should be, because the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is designed for us to have oil in emergency situations and acts of war. But this popped in the Daily Wire. The Senate moves to block the sale of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China and Iran, which is awesome. Okay. So go for it, Senate. I mean, they passed it. It was an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which, for those of you that don't know, is where we get all of our defense spending generally from. And it apparently, the amendment says that it would ban sales of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia. Now, for those of you that have short-term memories, I'm just going to reply to you and understand that we actually did send some of our SPR reserves over to China. In fact, there was articles about it when it occurred about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, off of Joe Biden. Joe Biden, and incidentally, sold them oil, and when he did, it was actually oil from our SPR. So this, I mean, I'm glad that at least it was kind of a bipartisan information, or bipartisan situation. It was spearheaded by Ted Cruz of Texas and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And apparently it's been drained. The SPR has been drained to 40-year lows. Now, if we go to war with China, we're not going to have any of that set up. It's just, this is just horrible. But anyway, I'm glad that they actually did this. I really am. One other thing with regards to energy and things like that. You know those wonderful electric vehicles that the Biden administration is pushing and pushing and pushing? Anyway, apparently, because it's been so hot, this article from the Washington Examiner popped. Electric vehicles struggle to hold up amid heat wave roasting the U.S. Yeah, so apparently these guys, so I know about cold, cold affecting batteries and things like that, making them not quite as well. They have optimum temperature ranges that they need to operate within, and cold affects them. But what I wasn't aware that heat also affected them too. But apparently, this from the piece, electric vehicle owners can expect to take on additional preparations as the summer months heat up and vehicle performance declines. The United States has broken a number of extreme heat records this year, and millions have received weather advisories as the heat wave is set to continue in the U.S. Southwest. An increase in temperatures means EV drivers may see their car battery power running low more frequently. It's been documented that the cold weather has been proven to impact the range of electric vehicles, causing some cars to lose up to 35% of their range in freezing conditions, as shown in a study conducted by Recurrent Auto. Additionally, warmer temperatures can also have a number of adverse effects on EVs, such as reducing the battery's state of health faster. So in other words, if you live in a hot environment and you have an electric vehicle, you potentially are losing the life or draining the life out of that battery. So yeah, it's just horrible. And to kind of go along with this, we have an in-depth article. I just shake my head at. I just can't even believe this. Okay. I just seriously can't even believe this. But apparently, according to the Epoch Times, there was a study that was done that Bidenomics spends up to $7 million to create each $50,000 green job, according to the study. The study says EV manufacturing subsidies enrich corporations but do little for workers. And this from the piece. Despite the claims of Bidenomics acolytes that it will rebuild the middle class, a new study states that hundreds of billions in federal subsidies for electric vehicle production are wasteful corporate giveaways to the tune of up to $7 million per job created. Taxpayers are going to forego tens of billions of dollars that are going to be given to some of the biggest corporations in America to build specialty vehicles that consumers don't seem to want. Remember that article that I talked to you about where EVs are like showing up on the lot and nobody is going to buy them? Anyway, this is Solyndra all over again. Okay, Solyndra was the whole Biden thing where Biden created this energy company and pumped tons of public money into it, and it never went anywhere. So anyway, this is just hilarious. In addition to the subsidies, the Biden administration is also using regulatory agencies to force automakers to get in line. New, significantly tighter emissions regulations on cars and light trucks were announced by the Environmental Protection Agency in April, with the goal of mandating that up to 67% of new vehicles sold would have to be electric by 2032 in order for car makers to be in compliance. Now, they also, they talk about the history of government industrial policy, however, is rife with insider dealing, perverse incentives, and waste. A hallmark case for green energy was Solyndra. I just mentioned it. Solyndra, a manufacturer of solar panels that was granted $500 million in federal loan guarantees under the Obama-Biden administration and raised $1 billion in private capital, only to go bankrupt 2 years later. Okay. Many experts say the current EV agenda is likely to produce the same result. According to industry reports, for example, Ford sold 12,000 EVs in the first quarter of 2023, but lost on average about $60,000 for every single EV they sold. One report stated, considering that the Ford Model E average selling price was around $58,000 in the first quarter, the Blue Oval spent $118,000 on average for every EV it sold. This made Tesla fans joke that Ford should only buy a Model Y, slap a Ford badge on it, and still lose less money. The losses are expected to accelerate in the second quarter as Ford announced up to a $4,000 price cut on the Mustang Mach-E. So, yeah. Anyway, where do they make their money? Mr. Bryce, and I'm not sure what Mr. Bryce is, who Mr. Bryce is. Let me see if I can find him here. I know. Oh, Robert Bryce, who is an energy expert and author. Mr. Bryce said, where do they make their money? On internal combustion engine vehicles. And yet they're going to spend tens of billions of dollars, including massive amounts of money from taxpayers, to try to effectively force feed electric vehicles into the marketplace. So here's the thing. I know that, and I've talked about electric vehicles. Look, I understand the need for wanting to go to something different and something new, but you can't throw all of this into a single pot, just like with our energy. I mean, we can invest in and we can create things like green energy solutions, but you can't just go and cut the cord completely on fossil fuels. We're not set up to do it, and the technology isn't even necessarily built out completely for this. I mean, we saw so many EVs in Florida that caught fire because they got caught in the hurricane and they had saltwater intrusion. So there's still a lot of stuff that needs to go and grow, I should say, for these kinds of technologies to essentially take a primary place within our electrical grid and everything else. But I mean, there's just way too many drawbacks, and for them to try and push this crap on us now, I mean, it's bad for business. I don't see energy or lawmakers doing any of this for very long. Yeah. So, all right. That, folks, is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. No, I do not have a question for Whiskey, although actually I take that back. There was a question. It's a real short question. It's a real fast question. So I'm not even going to bother to put the whole, paper thing across the front and everything else. But here's the question. The question somebody asked me, and I won't even dignify. I'm sorry. I'm not going to even say who sent it. But somebody sent in and asked, boxers or briefs? My response to that is, figure it out. Oh, if you like what I do on the program, please do me a favor. Head on over to Rumble and sign up for an account. It's free. And then go and follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. I transmit on Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday nights for right now at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I'm just laughing because they're everybody in the chat's going, boxers, boxer briefs, briefs. They're making guesses on what I wear for my underwear. I've already sent you guys my naked photo. Okay, folks? All right. And just as a last call to this, only because I happen to see. So Music Man asks me, any opinion on the Jason Aldean song? Okay, I was going to talk a little bit about the Jason Aldean song on Wednesday when I was so rudely interrupted by my electrical outage. So here's the thing. The song is called Try It in a Small Town. And I'll be honest with you, I like it. I think it's a great song. I don't think there's not a single lyric in it that is racist in any way, shape, or form. I also know that there is a official music video that apparently has in the background a historic landmark courthouse that was apparently the scene for a lynching for a young man who was falsely accused of raping a white girl. And I'll be honest with you, yeah, that's, that unfortunately happened during the time. I mean, it's an ugly part of our history, one that we can't sit here and deny, but it is definitely an ugly part of our history. But there's absolutely no reason to say that song, which is actually about the positives of a small town, okay, versus the urban dwellers in the cities. But I think it's a great song. I'm glad that it's going up to number one. You should listen to it all over. And I listened to it. I listened to it actually before the show tonight. So yeah. All right. We will see you on Wednesday. God willing, the creeks don't rise, the electric and the internet stay on. We'll see you on Wednesday on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Have a great rest of your weekend. And good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.